seeing anything, she can join in at any time. So Neil, do you want to get our IT, whoever's on there, will you get the meeting started? Let us know, and I'll share the agenda right now.
Okay, great. I'll call this meeting to order of the FFE Finance Committee, August 30th, 2021. And we will start with the approval of the minutes. And the minutes were included in our board packet. Thank you, staff. And may I have a motion to approve the April 12th, 2021 minutes?
So move.
Support.
Any discussion, corrections, or edits?
Director
Okay.
Carroll, are you seeing these on screen okay right now? The minutes?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Terrific, thank you. Call to vote. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. And we'll move to reports and communications. I'll turn this over to Stephen.
Thank you, Treasurer Carroll. Welcome, everyone. We have today a really momentous piece on our agenda, even though it's just a small looking agenda item like anything else. And that would be the recommended action to have the board accept the recent $400 million donation to the FFE. And so as the Finance Committee, a couple steps here. One is that there is the board adopted policy, which is the gift acceptance policy. And so there's two categories of gifts here. One is cash, one would be marketable securities. Those don't technically require, or not even technically, but they don't require approval. However, the size of this gift and the fact that it will be executed over about 10 years really just kind of brings us on our radar as something, of course, special. And to have board action accepting the entire gift is, just a great moment for marking this in history and also creating a historical record, clearing up any concern there. So Finance Committee is the first to see it, and we're recommending that a recommendation is taken to the board on September 13th to approve it. So this, as I said, could be a vote or just assent if there's no dissent here from committee members. And what you see here on screen would then essentially be the committee, the board item on the agenda on the 13th.
Any questions? Or comments? We don't need to take a vote, as Steve said, but I just want to make sure that everyone is in agreement with this recommendation. Great.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And
we'll document.
we are very, very grateful for this just incredibly transformational gift to our community.
Absolutely. And thank you again for attending the ceremony we held on the steps of City Hall just a few weeks ago. Now it seems like forever ago, but attached with this item is a projection, and of course projections are based on a series of assumptions about what's going to be in the future, many years out in the future in some cases. But again, this is attached to the agenda item here to just show the presumptions that go into the kind of earnings that we'll receive. This will be discussed, I'm sure, more and more as the years go by and adjusted, but we include it here just really for the record and to show how those 10 years of $40 million contributions alone launch us toward a sustainable $500 million endowment. So continuing on to the second agenda item today is the investment report. And with this, I will hand it over to CFO Steve Vicenzi. And Steve, just let me know when you'd like the slides advanced, and I'll just scroll through as we go. So starting on, looks like the initial cover letter here. Of course, we don't need to touch on every
Sure.
page, so just let me know where you'd like to go.
You can hold here for a minute. So I'll just kind of do a good overview. Obviously, the fund hasn't changed since the last time we went through this, but I'll kind of cover what's happened last quarter. So overall, the fund went from 97.1 million to 102.1 million during this quarter. Increase overall 5 million with the return of 5.15%. So obviously continuing to move in the right direction here. We can kind of keep going from there. Next page. Okay, and we'll pause here for a second. So this page breaks down, kind of where the overall fund is at, how we're still targeting that 50-50 allocation between equity and fixed income. You can see here where equities were 52.3% and fixed income was 47.6%. The biggest reason for that is the equities performed well, as we'll get into over the next couple of pages, and the fixed income has continued to just kind of hold steady, more or less. So we can go to the next page. Here we have the monthly returns since inception for the fund. As we grow this out, we'll kind of just get this down to quarterly returns, but you can see that since with every month this year, except for January, we've had positive returns. So it's been a good sign overall. And overall, since inception, return of 22%. Next page. Again, just kind of same view, but quarterly. So we can just kind of go to the next, continue on here. Again, just another breakdown of the equities versus fixed income, where we are compared to policy. So kind of same information. We can go to the next page. And here you kind of see the 3-month, year-to-date, and 1-year returns for each of the funds. Overall, for the past 3 months here, kind of focusing on that, the equities returned 8.5%. And the fixed income returned 1.5%. So overall, a good quarter for us. Next page. And this is just kind of how they've compared to their benchmarks. So the equities are tracking very well with the S&P 500, which is what it's designed to do. So that's right on target. The Jensen Fund, a little bit off of their benchmark, but nothing large enough yet to be concerned about. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on that as we move forward. Next page. Kind of, yeah, we can skip this. Next page. And then it's just a description of what those benchmarks were, what each of what those funds are made up of, and what they're meant to project as and compare to in the market. So that's kind of just a standard page that stays with the report. Next page. And here we kind of get into the expenses for the quarter from the fund. As you see, we had some, we filed our 990 during the first quarter and paid the invoice in the second quarter. Have our standard consulting fees, and then you can see here where we have our custody fees for State Street. Those are paid through December. Their State Street has, at least in my tenure, been consistently behind on invoicing. So, we do know that more bills are coming. However, if we don't have to pay them now, we won't have to worry about that. So it's kind of nice to allow that cash to stay in the investments and grow. And then just kind of continuing on, BlackRock and the Jensen fees are tracking as per normal. And just a little bit, if we look back at last year, it's a little bit of a hiccup as far as to when Jensen was paid through in the fourth quarter. So we just have showed the December one in the first quarter, and then we have the 3 months, January through March, here in the second quarter. And next quarter, we'll expect April through June. So next page. And then this is just an overall cash flow report of what's happened with the fund. Not a whole lot of activity. We've already covered the expenses. Sorry. Okay. And then you can just kind of see the realized and unrealized gains kind of down there below. So net investment activity of 4.9 million, and ending with just over 102 million in the investment balance for the quarter. And next page. Okay, so that was the end of the report. I guess the only other thing I'd like to highlight is the finance committee during their most recent meeting did vote to change the allocation. So right now we're a 50-50 allocation. With the announcement of the commitment to donate 40 million per year, they felt more comfortable with that announcement and seeing that long-term projection that Steve had up earlier about when we start paying for the annual gifts to the city and the aspirational funds out of the endowment. They felt more comfortable going to a heavier weighted allocation in equities. So the new allocation will be 70% equities, 25% fixed income, and 5% real estate investment. So that was just kind of some of the highlights from this quarter. So I guess I'll kind of open up. If anyone's got any questions, I'll happily go through them.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Thank you very much, Steve. And we would now be on to item C3. And this is the final item in our budget today. Director Calderon-Hueso, I believe I owe you an apology for a link not being sent. So thank you for joining us, and sorry for the delay on my end. You can hear us okay? Okay. So we are on item C3, and this is for the preliminary review of the city FFE budget for 2022. So it's a transmittal memo, and I'm just going to scroll down. This would be familiar from past years. And what this does is lay out the FFE activities at the city of Kalamazoo in terms of the three areas of investment. So budget stabilization, the lowering of taxes for all city property taxpayers, and aspirational investments. Those are wrapped up here in the summary sheet with total estimated activities. And then I'll scroll down to the table, again, the same as previous years, that sum this up in the language of Imagine Kalamazoo, as you'll see on the left, and then also FFE programs. Really unusual this year, which is very worth covering at this point. We'll go into greater depth at the September 13th board meeting, is the very significant contribution of American Rescue Plan dollars that the city is receiving. You've probably heard in the news, or if you've been able to attend city commission meetings, that we're receiving, I believe it's $39.8 million, or right around $39 million of federal stimulus money to be spent by the city for, I think, primarily reasons where areas were impacted by COVID-19 or the economic impacts of such a prolonged economic downturn associated with it. And the city has undertaken a really significant and I think smart effort to figure out how to prioritize those dollars in terms of spending where the city needs it, and feathering that into the existing Imagine Kalamazoo plan. So it's a large infusion of dollars, and it's kind of a new area of investment with this COVID focus. So merging that with the city's already ambitious activities has taken some thought and some leadership by the city. So we'll talk more about that in September, and then it'll be a theme this fall as the city itself just goes through its budget. But that has affected in various ways, some very small, some not so small, how we're thinking about FFE. Of course, because we want to look holistically at how these dollars are invested. On the broad top level, we really don't see any areas that FFE has invested in that we're going to cease investing in. So special requests that were brought forward by staff with partners this spring in the same areas: affordable housing, economic development, youth development, these all remain. And we have a significant investment in most of these areas. But we just do want to highlight the fact that changes could, of course, happen. This is preliminary, and we would then describe and sort of track the changes as we go through toward the eventual approval of this budget.
So Steve, when we look at Youth Mobility Fund and DAFA, which don't have projected numbers, that's probably because we're still trying to determine what that number is going to be, or what would be getting approved there.
Good question, Director Washington. So the Youth Mobility Fund, that was funded initially with, I believe, $500,000 for two reasons. One is that it was a brand new program and we had really only best guess situation of how much use there would be and what it would cost, because we're reimbursing Metro for ridership, and that ridership can, vary widely. COVID shut that program down, and actually, Metro was fare free for over a year, so they really didn't take in revenue from any riders. So we still have the balance of that initial grant, and because Metro's at lowered ridership, there's a lower number of Youth Mobility Fund passes that will be available through the schools this year temporarily until we can scale back up to full capacity. So long story short, the dollars that are still there from that initial allocation should be sufficient to get us through the year. So we just don't anticipate needing more revenue there. And digital access for all, there is a remaining carry forward in that line, which is $100,000 that may be needed this year. However, KPL, Kalamazoo Public Library System, has also been very smart in pursuing some other funding that is available to them to help support that program. And there's no final answer on that yet, but if those grants and those other supports are available, that allows us to stretch our dollar further, and then continue potentially, in the future with that carry forward to keep that project going. So both those cases, it's just that there's enough revenue for those projects, so we're not recommending any new sources of funding for those.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the explanation. Appreciate it.
And Steve, I've got a quick question.
Yes.
The Treasurer Carroll.
Mhm.
The federal funding, the 39 million, when does it have to be spent?
So I've got some other people on this call who are closer to it than I. I believe it needs to be fully expended by the end of the 26 fiscal year. Is that right, Steve Vicenzi?
That's correct. It has to be committed by December 2024 and then fully spent by December 2026.
Great, thank you.
So items here you'll see, and again, I've already given the caveat that this is a preliminary and needs to kind of work within context of the whole budget. One thing to highlight would be ongoing investment in infrastructure. So that's including sidewalks. Youth programs continue as a status quo funding. One new item that we can talk about more later is some exploratory dollars for a childhood savings account and wealth building initiative that staff has been working on over the past year in partnership with organizations such as The Promise, Kalamazoo Public Schools, Kalamazoo Regional Education Services. And then you would also see, in terms of I'm sorry, I just lost track of it, safe housing. So that's going to be a couple items in removing dangerous buildings that need to be removed, and the city otherwise doesn't have resources for. So that's part of the overall housing initiative of the city. And I think everything else here we're familiar with at this point. So kind of line by line, directors know what they're looking at, know what you're looking at. And so just again to reiterate is that we've got a bottom line of $27.3 million. We do expect that to change. We don't expect a really significant change, but there will be some balancing with how we can leverage ARPA dollars, how some projects may evolve as they get discussed more with staff. And we'll present that at the time. So if there's a project that's on here that has been sort of split between ARPA dollars that can be leveraged and FFE dollars, we'll show that those columns in total so that directors can really get a sense of the overall activity. Any questions on what you're seeing on your screen here? Okay. With that, that concludes the agenda items that we had. Treasurer Carroll. And this, for as far as action goes, is recommended that this is included in the Finance Committee report to the board. So again, consensus is fine. A vote is also fine if you'd like to do that.
I'll just get the consensus of the directors here. Is everyone in favor of including those?
All right.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Outstanding. And pardon the scroll back up to the top here. I'll take us back to the agenda. So we would be on item D. We don't have any regular agenda items today. And for item E, staff on the call, are there any public comments that have been recorded?
There are no public comments at this time.
Thank you very much. So that takes us to item F, Madam Treasurer.
board member comments. Does anyone have any comments today?
Yeah, just briefly, the 400 million and the announcement was amazing. I appreciate everybody that was able to be there. I couldn't be there to be on those steps. You have no idea how much I wanted to be. That's just, it's history in the making. And we cannot, take any of it for granted ever, right? We've had some wonderful things that are happening in our community, and this is just an opportunity to have a full scale attack on the issues that our community faces, that many across the country face, that don't have the same opportunity that we do financially. So I just know that we will do the best that we can to make sure that the resources are used in the most impactful way. And that gets to start with us and seeing a lot of these things on the approval and work with the commission and our entire city. So, just a thank you to those who have made this possible, and just an assurance that we're going to try to be the best stewards as we can with the dollars.
Thank you, Director Washington. Well said. And I also want to add my sincere appreciation to the donors for this incredible contribution. Director Calderon-Hueso, any comments?
Yes, thank you. I actually am just really excited to hear a little bit more about what we're going to be doing in these aspirational projects that are new for the budget, such as the safe housing and also the downtown inviting and accessible places. So I wanted to lift both of those things up, but definitely echo both what your comment and that of Director Washington.
Thank you. All right, wonderful. Thank you all. Is there anything else, Steve, that we need to cover? Are we ready for adjournment?
We are, Madam Treasurer. Thank you.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye, everyone. Take
We'll
care.
see you
Good
soon.
night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
And I'll just stay on. It's the same link, so I'll turn my camera and mic off and just let it roll.
Sounds good. I'll join you shortly.
Okay, super. Thanks.